Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about parallel and perpendicular lines. Only a couple sections left in this unit, so make sure that you're taking good notes and following along. Okay, so the first thing you need to know is that parallel lines have the slopes that are the same. Okay, so parallel lines have slopes that are the same. And before we get too far, just to make sure, remember that parallel lines are lines that run next to each other and never touch. Okay, so remember that. So parallel lines have slopes that are the same. Parallel lines also have y-intercepts that are different. Okay, so their slopes are the same, their y-intercepts must be different. Second type of lines that you need to know about today are perpendicular lines, and they have slopes that are opposite reciprocals of each other. Just so you know what an opposite reciprocal is, let's say we had the slope 3/5. Okay, opposite reciprocal means that we have to flip it over, it's reciprocal, and you have to change the sign. Okay, so 3/5 becomes -5/3. Or if you had the slope of 2/1, you'd flip that over, change the sign. Okay, so that is opposite reciprocals. Now, perpendicular lines have y-intercepts that we don't care about. So it can be the same, it can be different, it doesn't matter to us at all. Okay, so here is parallel and perpendicular lines, what we need to remember about each of them. Okay, so we're going to jump in and try a few examples here. So number one, we want to see if these are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Well, let's look at our slopes. Okay, we can see that our slopes on both of these happen to be 2, so that would indicate that it's parallel, but they also must have different y-intercepts. Okay, and they definitely do. So since these have different or same slopes and different y-intercepts, they are parallel. Okay, why are they parallel? Well, because they have the same slope and different y-intercept. Okay? All right, so let's just go ahead and for grins, I want to go ahead and graph these. So for our first equation here, we have y equals 2x plus 2. We, of course, know that our slope right up here was 2, and our y-intercept, our number after x, was also 2. Okay, and for our other guy, we had our slope of 2 and our y-intercept of -4. Okay, so we can go ahead and take this information and we can go ahead and graph it. So let's try our first one over here first, where we know that the y-intercept is going to be 2. So let's go ahead and graph our y-intercept of 2. And we know that from there, we had a slope of 2. Okay, so from our y-intercept, we're going to go up 2 over 1. Okay, and then, of course, we can draw our line. Okay, so there is our line for number 1 there. Okay, let's try our other one. This time we knew our y-intercept was -4. I'm going to do this one in a black line. Okay, so we have a y-intercept of -4. And we also knew that our slope was 2 on this one as well. So up 2 over 1 and plot your other point. Okay, so then we can go ahead and draw our line. Okay, so you can see that our lines don't touch, they're parallel to each other, so our graph goes ahead and shows us that our findings were true. Okay, so that's number 1. Let's try another one real quick. Okay, is this parallel, perpendicular, or neither? So let's go ahead and look at our slopes. This one has a slope of -8, and this one has a slope of 1/8. Well, if you put your -8 slope over 1, and you flip it over, that becomes -1/8. And then if you change the sign, the negative goes away and our slope becomes 1/8. So since we have opposite reciprocal slopes, we know that we have perpendicular. Okay, we have perpendicular lines right here. Okay, so why? Because they have opposite reciprocal slopes. Okay, so why they have opposite reciprocal slopes. So let's go ahead and find our slope and our y-intercept for both of these equations. Okay, on the first one, we'll do this one in red. We know that our slope was the number in front of x, which was -8. But wait, we don't have a y-intercept. If we don't have a y-intercept, we just want to go ahead and assume that it is 0. Okay, so if you don't have a y-intercept, assume it's 0. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the other one. I'll do it in, let's do it in green. Okay, so we have this guy. Our slope, of course, the number in front of x was 1/8. And our y-intercept was the number after x, or 7. Okay, so let's go ahead and graph it. All right, so we had the first one, a y-intercept of 0 and a slope of -8. So let's go ahead and graph it, a slope or a y-intercept of 0 and a slope of -8. So we're going to go down 8 and over 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and over 1. Okay. Oops, we need to move this down 1. So it should have been right here. My bad. Okay, so if you draw your line right through there like this. Okay, so there's our first one, and our second one had a y-intercept of 7. So y-intercept of 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And a slope of 1/8. So we're going to go up 1 and over 8 and plot our point. And then, of course, you can draw your line. Okay, so you'll notice these are perpendicular, so there should be a 90-degree angle between those two lines. Okay, so here's two examples of parallel, perpendicular, or neither. All right, let's try a couple more real quickly, and then we will be done. Okay, so this one, we have y equals a number, and x equals a number. So remember, when y equals a number, you're going to have a horizontal line, and when x equals a number, you have a vertical line. So if we went to y equals 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and drew a horizontal line through there, that's what our line would be. And if you had x equals -2, remember you go to x equals -2, draw a point, and then draw your line. Okay, so you can see that those cross each other at a 90-degree angle, so these are going to be perpendicular. Okay, and I'll go ahead and assume that you can go ahead and get the slope and y-intercept for both of those guys. Okay, last example. We have parallel, perpendicular, and neither, and we're going to have to solve for y. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. And to solve for y, we got to get the x's on the other side. So we would have then 3y equals -12x plus 12. Then, to undo that multiplication, we would have to divide each term by 3. So that would in effect give you y equals negative 4x plus 4. Okay, let's do one little bit more and then we'll be done. So this time you have to subtract 4x on both sides. And that, of course, would give you negative y equals negative 4x plus 1. And then you have a negative y, so if I wanted to change that to y, I just have to change the signs of each term. So negative y becomes y, negative 4x becomes 4x, and positive 1 becomes negative 1. Okay? Now, because our slopes are right here, we have negative 4 and a positive 4. Well, they're not the same slope, and they're definitely not the opposite reciprocal slopes. So these are neither. And I trust that you could go ahead, find the slope, y-intercept, and graph if you wanted to. All right, we're going to do one last example. Okay, but before we do, I got a joke for you. All right, here's the joke. What is the difference between a school teacher and a train? Think about it. Think about it. The teacher says spit your gum out, and the train says chew, chew, chew. You like it. Okay, what I want you to do is go ahead and try this guy by yourself, and then show me. See ya.